kick it off, this is what we're talking about tonight is pushing the boundaries, I suppose, of stereotypes. What are your opinions on it?
I think that boundaries are obviously all created at different levels. How you know people, like if my boundaries are far wider when I'm comfortable with people, and they shrink when I don't know them because I don't have the right to insult somebody. So yeah, I think joking, sarcasm has incredible open doors, but I think people need to be wise. Who's the audience and why are they saying a particular joke?
Would you think that what I just said was offensive? I mean, did you take offence to it?
Oh, I think it's offensive. I don't particularly like crude jokes.
Yeah, neither do I. But I thought, why not kick it off? Why not kick it off with something with a twist?
But I get the point.
What about you, Jamal?
Yeah, no, I don't think it was offensive. You know, I think it's just another silly joke, and people just have a laugh at. But it's just we have to be very careful how we joke with other people. As he said, if we know them, if we're close. If we don't know anyone, it's better not to bring up any offensive jokes. Yep. So that's my stance on that.
Danny, my brother?
I might have to pass it.
Well, I think humour is very subjective. So we've got some people who are very hypersensitive, some people who are going through hell or have been through hell, or close loved ones are going through hell or been through hell. And it's good to be mindful of those people and to be sensitive to whatever they're sensitive to. We don't want to trigger anybody, we don't want to upset anybody. But humour also is a unifier. So it brings us together. When we all share a laugh together, we all become more intimate with each other, and that's a beautiful thing. It's about connection. And so, and then some things we joke about where we all know that it's not true, but some people, we've just got into the habit of making jokes about it. And there are some people that will take offence and some won't. So professional comedians walk a very fine line because their job is to push the boundaries. And if they don't push the boundaries, people go, oh, they're not edgy enough, they're not really exciting. And if they push the boundaries too far, oh, they're offensive. And so it's a very, very fine line that they walk. And it's frightening to go on stage as a musician with a whole band. But to go on stage without an instrument, suddenly you have to do something with your hands, that's next level nerves. To go on stage alone is next level nerves. To go on stage alone without an instrument and having to do something with your hands, that's next level. To go on stage where there's nothing but the sound of your voice, and you've got nothing to hold on to, and no one on stage with you to relate to, and you're there, and it's just the sound of your voice and what you're saying, is very nerve-wracking. And then to say something that's pushing the boundaries, challenging people, that some people are going to find offensive. Yep. There's always someone who's going to find something offensive.
But the difference between a comedian is that just before we talked, and I was in New York, and we went to a number of shows, and a comedy club was one of them. And my wife and I, we knew we were going to be subjected to some vile stuff. We were hoping for some good humour. Again, we have different types of humour that appeal to us. But I asked for it, so I can't get angry at the person being
it's context.
So vile. Yeah. Because I just couldn't believe that they thought that taking it there was funny. I thought it's just not funny.
Well, that's the beautiful thing. When you've got professional comedians and you've got hard comedians like Frankie Boyle or Jimmy Carr that are going to go there, they're going to not just use profanity, but they're going to talk about sensitive subjects, taboo subjects.
Yeah, absolutely.
And they're going to get really hard. And their fans know that's what's going to happen.
Correct.
And they like that because they find other stuff a bit boring. And so they want that edgy stuff. And so, but I guess a lot of people, they make jokes on social media, and not everybody on their social media feed is a close friend. Really, they have a high level of intimacy with that, kind of knows them and gets that and stuff. And some people might think that they're serious or take it seriously or take offence, and that's when it gets you've got to be careful.
I think there's different scenes that you can be, I suppose, comedic or funny, or just spurt out something random in the sense of a joke. like you went to a club, a comedy club in the States, and seen some, you said vulgar stuff, or heard some vulgar stuff.
To me, it was vulgar.
Right. But personally,
obviously,
this is the thing.
People were lifting up their
demographics.
hand in the room, and
Of course, cheering and everything, right? But different demographics. But what I'm saying is, like, for me, if I'm out with the lads, I do hang around a different group of lads these days. I'm not around the boisterous, well, the real rebellious type lads. I'm around God-fearing brothers these days. So we don't go spitting out swearing and stupid jokes. They're more, it's more of a humble approach to comedy. But then if I'm with some of the other brothers that, like some of the people that I mentor, and we go out for a lunch or something, or anything like that, if I'm just meeting up with someone from the outside world and they have a joke to spit, I wouldn't want my wife next to me hearing something like that, something vulgar like that. Personally, I think it depends on who you're around for you to be able to say something, and you've got to know the right position to say it. You can't just go and shoot something out, because at the end of the day, you don't know who's sitting at the table next to you. Yeah.
But then, having said all that, I love sarcasm.
Sarcasm's good, man.
And I do it deliberately to cut into people.
Yeah,
not to be nasty at an individual, but to be very cutting about an issue. And so I do find I use a lot of sarcasm. And you're back to social media, so you'll have people that I'm offending. I said, you're part of my audience. You're part
of my, into it, aren't they?
You're part of my audience, and there is this beautiful button called delete. Just delete me. You know what you're going to expect. You know I'm going to push the boundaries through sarcasm.
Sarcasm's good, but wit's better.
That's quite interesting, because now I feel like we're talking about public, now we're talking about personal, our personal selves. Personally, I tend to not like joking certain kind of jokes, like vulgar stuff or offensive things, things that are not that does not hurt the person or directed at a person, because I like comedy, but at the same time, I realize a lot of comedians, people don't take their life seriously. Like when they go out, they're going about shops or restaurants. Everyone just wants them to crack a joke. Like, come on, life is not always about joking. There's times where you want to live a normal life. You know, you want to say A and B, and people don't have to ask you to swear to God that you're telling the truth. Or, you know what I mean?
Well, they're not understanding the healthy work leisure lifestyle. They're breaking into their personal space.
Exactly.
And attacking them like they're supposed to be at work or something, when, hold on a second, they've clocked off for the day. They're in normal life.
Yeah, because I've seen, there's a friend of mine who loves to joke a lot, and when he says something, I don't believe it straight away, and no one does. We have to confirm whether he's telling the truth or not, and then we believe him. And then I looked at it and said, no, I don't want to be like that. You know?
Right.
And so I decided to limit my jokes with people. So at least when I tell people, you know, I want to do this or I'm thinking about this, there's no doubts. I don't have to confirm anything, because I've always, you know.
Well, it can be taken a different angle as well. If a joke is said, I suppose in a context that you don't take it on board as being funny, it could be like, people could take it as a threat. People could take it as a direct stab at you, in personal stab at you.
Humour can also be like a survival mechanism. It can also be like a way of coping with trauma.
100%.
A mask.
100%.
Yeah, there's a lot of masks, and that is a big mask. Through my studies that I've learned, and through my life, the mask was, you know, making people smile, making people happy, to hide a lot of anguish and pain that I went through. So it is a big mask. It's a telltale sign.
It's interesting, the different types of humours that you have through the generations. Like, and I shared last time that my father was in a concentration camp for 3.5 years. And so coming into Australia, and there's a show called Hogan's Heroes.
Loves the smell of napalm.
Well, that's right. Hogan's Heroes, you remember the show Hogan's Heroes? So, you know, Americans in a German concentration camp. And what amazed me even about Dad, Dad laughed at everything. I'm talking, he laughed at, and he's going, what, you know, you could just stupid show, but not turn it off. He didn't have post-traumatic stress over this absolute bullshit of a show. It wouldn't make him laugh like he would laugh thinking it was funny. He'd laugh they were insane to actually say that was a concentration camp. But he used a lot of humour to survive war. So like you just said, humour can be real healing if you're that sort of personality, you know. Whereas
it's like with third world countries, you know, people tend to be more skilled in dancing and music and singing, because this is where they get away from stress and problems of life. And back to the jokes, in Sudan they like to pick on people who get high. They're stoners. They always got jokes about stoners, so no one really gets offended.
Yeah.
But when you
give us an example, bro.
Okay, there's this famous one my dad told me. So, this young boy, like maybe 7, 8, he got stoned, and then he was like pretending to be the sand was, the floor was water. So he was pretending to swim on the floor. Then the sister came and saw him doing that, playing on the dirt. So she went and daubed on him. She went to dad. She goes, "Dad, look, my little brother, he's playing in the dirt."
Yep.
And then the dad comes, start rolling his pants up. He goes, "Man, he's swimming in such a deep place. How am I gonna get him out?"
Just going on with it.
The dad gets high too.
Yeah, naturally. Man, see, this is the thing. Stereotyping is a big thing, and that comes from you can be stereotyping people with a joke. That's what I was saying before. Like, it would be a direct stabbing in that.
Yeah.
So like, people used to joke with me a lot as a kid, and I took it offensively. Being from a Middle Eastern background, I took it really offensively. These days, I tend not to surround myself with that sort of scene or that sort of people, because I suppose I still do take offence to it. Not all jokes, but there are some jokes that still bring up.
Yeah, they're still childish.
Yeah.
I know what you mean.
Because
Exactly.
stereotyping is essentially prejudice.
Yeah, it is.
It's saying there's a small percentage of this group that has this characteristic, so we're gonna suggest that everybody in this group has this characteristic. And it's just like when you get stopped by the police, because a small percentage of black people commit crime, the police, some police officers believe that anyone who's black is a criminal.
Yep.
And so we get stopped a lot. And any kind of prejudice is wrong, and humor through the history of humor, there's been a lot of prejudice being displayed through humor in the form of stereotyping. But now, with consciousness having risen to a certain point, we all know that the majority of people on this planet are intelligent enough to know that those stereotypes aren't real.
Yeah.
But so the humor's taken on a different sort of form, because there's people making these jokes, and we're all in on the joke. We all know it's ridiculous, and that doesn't justify saying that it's okay to make those jokes, but it's just explaining that the jokes are being received in a different manner. Whereas before they were being received in a manner like if you made a joke about black people and crime, before people would go, "Oh yeah, no." Now people just go, "Yeah, well, that's ridiculous."
So like the freedom of speech thing, that you could say, let's just say a joke that would offend someone, and then someone turns around and says, "Well, you can't say that." Where's the freedom of speech then? I was shot in the toe.
There isn't freedom of speech.
Right.
See, this is the thing. Like we talk about freedom of speech, and to a certain extent, there is freedom of speech, but there is a line, and that line, whether it's verbalized or not, invisible or not, is in the popular zeitgeist. There's an understanding where that line is, and of course that line moves through time. It moves, but we all kind of know roughly where it is, and we know that there's some jokes that are okay and some jokes that are not okay. It's okay to talk about some stuff. It's not okay to talk about other stuff.
Yeah, but I going back to who's the audience, what's the relationship.
Yeah.
When I introduced my wife to my Greek Macedonian relatives, right, talk about prejudice. And
That would have been hard.
not for me.
No, but you growing up as a Greek Macedonian?
But they were just dumb. My family were just dumb. They just were. They try to set me up with a Greek girl, and I'm going, come on, And I'm as much an Aussie as I am a Greek, even though I can speak the language of that.
Yeah.
And what I love about my parents is that you just choose who you love.
Yeah.
Just go out there and find her. And if I brought her home, she became the daughter, and I had to then find my way in the family. That's how great my parents were, right?
Wonderful.
So when I introduced my wife to my Greek Macedonians, they would say, "You're Greek?" like this, like, trying to be polite. And she passed off as one, but, I said, no, she's Australian. And they would go, oh, that's all right. That's all right. That's all right. And for years, we just laughed at their dumbness. It's plain rude. It's arrogant.
Yeah.
So we've turned that into this fantastic joke for years of, no, that's all right. That's all right. And they're bleeding of their prejudice.
I suppose that's the way that, like,
That's
the way
how you
they're
do it,
raised,
sarcasm.
mate.
So,
My parents were the same. My father especially. Like, if it wasn't an Egyptian girl, he'd be like, "All right, this up to you."
Yeah, that's the same humour. That's all right.
Yeah,
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
You make this decision
Well, I'm not
for
worried.
yourself.
I'm not worried. I picked it.
Right, but now, knowing, like, my father died 15 years ago. Now, growing and see, like, my father see me grow in a harsh environment. I didn't have to. I chose that life anyway. Now, knowing how happy I am, my father would love my wife more than me.
100%.
150%.
Yeah,
mate, you know what I mean?
100%,
And
mate.
I suppose prejudice went out the window, freedom of speech, all that crap. I mean, our parents didn't even know about none of these freedom of speech and stuff like that. There was certain ways you could talk back in their country.
Yeah.
You couldn't talk in the other ways, and certain jokes you can say, and certain jokes you can't say. But coming here, they question, like, can you say this? Can you say that? You know what I mean? They ask you, can you say these things? It's like, yeah, it's free country. But is it a free country? Is it? And that's the thing.
But I think westernised or different parts of the world where people are not in a village mindset.
Right.
So I often joke about being a village person, because a village person's like,
the village idiot is
it's just this sort of closed in. They only think in terms of
they know what's necessary for their survival.
Just to survive. So it's a real village. So as you evolve and you make more money and you learn more and you experiment more. This is where back to that humour or sarcasm or the freedom to speak. Like, for me to actually mock my father and my mother, I wouldn't mock them because I hate them. I've evolved. I've grown up, and growing up, I'd lie down and watch TV, and my brother couldn't walk over my back because of some superstitious thing that I've done. I'm going to curse my brother, and so we just jump over his back, just to mock it, break that village mentality out, mock sarcasm, and she goes, "Oh, you stupid boy," and she'd laugh. She'd know it was stupid. So that's a sort of humour.
Well, you're lucky it played out that way, because it could have gone a completely
I'm laughing because I've came across something similar like that when I was a young boy.
I agree. It's humour, isn't it?
And then she's like, "No, go back the other way." And I'm like, I just try to jump over and end up stepping on her leg again.
All right, so stereotypically, well, I always get picked on being the outcast in school, and growing up, it was always a finger pointed at me through my background being, that stereotypical, atypical Arab. Oh, he's a bad boy, he's a drug dealer, he's a gang member, all because of my background, all because I'm bloody Egyptian. Well, hold on a second, they call me Arab. But I was, right? It was good to call me. They could call me from a distance. But even still to the day, as a God-fearing man, and I'm going hard out my work and working hard with the church and with families and friends, I still get the occasional, aren't you an Arab? Aren't you involved in gangs? It's like, no.
Right.
So, I mean, that for me is a big part of...
Well, that's the confusing thing, isn't it? Because with stereotypes, like, some of them, for every individual, some of them may have some accuracy, and some of them completely not.
Oh, you could be on the ball, or you could be...
Like, I get people ask me if I can sell them marijuana and things like that. I don't smoke marijuana, but people assume I smoke marijuana because I have dreads and I've got dark skin. That's an assumption because of it. It's a stereotype, because some people that smoke marijuana are black with dreads. But people all over the world smoke marijuana. I mean, it's now recognised as a medicine.
Oh, you've also got the groups.
Very common.
You've got the ethnic groups that I suppose paint us that picture. I mean, you've got a lot of Western Sydney gangs that are Lebo, that are Arab. And that sort of filtered through to the gangs that were over here in the West. And yes, I was part of a massive ethnic street gang. But you get painted that picture. I've got a few friends that are the same like me, but they haven't done anything bad. The same background, yet they get picked on all the time.
Yeah, but I bet you they even leverage off that too.
They-
Guaranteed.
yeah, well, yeah.
100%.
I'm not saying they do or they don't. I cannot deny nor confirm.
Bloody well do, mate.
But the thing is,
I've got Greeks. I remember
milk
going to
it.
Melbourne. I remember going to Melbourne and meeting some Greeks in Melbourne. The second largest Greek population outside of Greece. And they go, "How you going, mate?" And I go, "Oh, good. Where are you from?" I said, "Greek." And I said, "How long have you been in Australia?" "I was born here." I said, "You what?" "I was born here." I go, "You were born here."
And you're Greek.
And you talk like that. And that's the sort of that's what I'm saying. They own. They're so proud of their
Own your heritage.
their woggy
Own
sort
your
of,
stereotype. Own the lane you're in.
Well, even the word wog, growing up, wog was a really derogatory term to Greeks, your Italians, your Slavs, and so they'd call you a wog. And so we evolved and we owned. We owned that term, and so then you have the comedy show Wog Boys. So we've evolved, right? So when I used to be a preacher, I'd travel around the world and preach, and I preached in a church in London, an all-black church, and I think the pastor and a couple of people were the only white people in the church, and I would use the term wog to describe my upbringing, and I'd say, when I was young, I was a wog in in Perth, this, that, and the other, and I can't even imagine, as the pastor after the service says, listen, just don't use that term wog because that's so derogatory. Because against black people. Yeah. And my mind started thinking about how many people I offended. Not even like I'm laughing. I'm thinking I'm
unintentional.
And I can't imagine how many people I just punched emotionally.
That's the beauty of your freedom of speech, and then you go and hit that mark and offend someone, then it's just out the window.
Wow,
out the window.
What
about you, Jimbo? Any fingers been pointed?
I don't get like much offensive ones. Actually, they get shocked. Like first of all, they look at me. They ask where you're from, and I'm like, I'm from Sudan. You're like, oh, you don't look Sudanese. How come you don't look like the other guys? I'm like, what does Sudanese look like? Is there a specific chart? What a Sudanese look like? Because they say you're not dark, you're not tall. It's like we have all kind of Sudanese, just because you see tall people and dark skinned people doesn't mean every Sudanese looks like that. And another one, actually, what my sisters get because they're practicing Muslims. When they wear their full attire, Islamic attire, sometimes I think when a lot of the media, there used to be a lot of terrorist things going on, and the media is just scaring everyone. They used to get a lot of hate. What do you call it?
Because of the hijab.
Yeah, people just like call them terrorists and this and that. And so
but that's not humour. That's just plain. That's
but they actually mean it.
That comes on.
They actually mean it. They're
of
not
course,
joking,
man.
And it's sad because people don't know what is stereotype and what is reality anymore.
Correct.
And it becomes like it reached a point where they just hated being in Australia. Like they just wanted to go back home. And we grew up here. You know what I mean? And it's sad. But for me as a guy, I don't take my experience as offensive. But I feel sorry for the women and the people who are defenseless, who can't do much for themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but by stereotypes, you look like someone that can look after yourself, so you don't worry about that.
I don't worry about
so
that.
Again, you're proud. You're owning,
exactly.
You're owning your colour. You're owning your background. You're owning everything.
Yeah. So everything is a surprise for them. Even when I speak English, they're like, "Oh, how long you been here?" I'm like, they're like, "Oh, you don't speak like Sudanese." I'm like, 20 years in Australia, man.
You're an
Why
Aussie,
you expect me to have an accent?
An Aussie, mate. Absolutely. Yeah.
What about you, Dan? Any stereotypes other than the obvious with the marijuana and that? Have you found it rough? I mean, in some scenes, maybe some jokes on your way.
Most of the prejudice I've gotten is from the police.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, definitely. By far. There's been, when there were skinheads around, I remember like playing in a ska band and having some skinheads give me the Nazi salute and, going Zig Heil and calling me the N-word and things like that. But we had 10 security at every gig because of the skinheads, But
Which bar was that? I remember going to some of those bars
But-
and
but-
bopping
but-
up and down. But I wasn't a skinhead.
yeah, but predominantly it's from the police force, and I think the police force has attracted a certain element. I mean, not all cops are bad. There's some great cops,
especially
but-
the era you're talking about.
Yeah, there's I mean, after one of the recordings we did here, I went into Northbridge and I went to park my car, and I had a policeman abusing me and threatening me when I was just parking the car. I was like, wow, you know. And that was after the talk about Black Lives Matter, you know. So it was just,
Wow.
you know, the timing was, you know.
Unbelievable.
And so, yeah, most of it's been from the police. Most people that outside of the police force, there's not a lot of racism. A little bit, but not a lot. I mean, I've been attacked a few times, been threatened a few times, stuff like that. But you know, not outside of the police force, not that often.
Right.
But from the police, fairly regularly.
Right.
I get it if I mention that I'm Egyptian to someone, and they ask me, "Oh, have you been to Egypt?" It's like, "Have you seen the pyramids?" The first thing they say. Hold on a second, man. Why does that always come to mind?
Yeah.
Just because I say I'm Egyptian, have I seen the pyramids or have you seen the Sphinx? Have you been to Egypt? It's like they automatically assume that you've been there, that you've lived. I'm like, oh, I'm born in Australia.
It's because of the limited
You know what?
information. You know, it's like for some people, all they know about Egypt
They go
is
village.
pyramids.
No.
Yeah.
But again, so many people have a village mentality. When I say village mentality, they are limited in their own personal development.
Yeah.
Their personal development.
That's
You know,
right,
It
yeah.
makes a lot of sense. Like if you think about it, like now life is so what do you call it? It's not like social as it used to be. Now everyone's in their own home, in their own living room. with their
Social
own-
is in the hand
with
now.
their own
With the
telephone.
phone.
So really,
The social
they're
there.
living
Yeah,
in
yeah.
a smaller
Sucks.
village than
Yes.
the actual village.
Yeah,
Because
here.
at least
It's a village
you know,
here.
Yeah.
And and
Matrix.
in the commercial world, you see a lot of. I used to deal with a lot of. I'm always dealing with conflict. All my work is I'm the guy you bring in to deal with a conflict somehow, right? And so you'd
Problem solver.
Conflict. and so I'm amazed at the amount of email muscle that they use. It's just email muscle. They would never say that to my face. They would never use that tone to me personally.
Yeah.
But somehow, because I'm not there in front of them, because I look people right in the eye when I do business, because to me, that to me is, I know exactly what's going on.
Yeah.
But through this,
The keyboard warrior.
they are nasty, they're rude, they're arrogant.
Black belt in touch typing.
They are they are litigators. And social media has done that. We're creating monsters out of very small-minded village minds, village people.
Social media
You know,
is poisonous,
I think
man.
it's even an insult to call them village mind because
Yeah.
the village people, they're actually more
Advanced,
smarter,
more
more
advanced.
kind.
No,
They know how to socialize.
Yeah, man.
But again, they do that within
Yeah,
the
yeah.
context
I
of the
agree.
village, though.
I
It's
agree.
within,
Yeah,
within
yeah.
the context of 50 people, 100 people. You look after your village.
Yeah.
But you actually just don't. You're not too concerned about the rest of the world.
Oh, but no, but if it's from village to village, then villagers know how to greet, meet, and what's expected
Yeah,
of the next village.
that's what I mean.
Mate, yes and no.
I tell you something.
I'm in New Guinea, right? I'm in
Yeah.
New Guinea, and the assistant pastor got arrested by a cop that was from I believe it's the lowlanders or the ocean. It's basically from people from the mountains and people from near the ocean. Total divide.
Yeah.
And you know that there's this, and so when I say village mentality, it's a gang mentality. It's a cultural thing. You know,
Yeah.
it's a total. This is where it's stereotyping, but I don't think it's stereotyping. I just think it's you speak a certain culture with your village, with your people.
I agree.
Like I have to be really honest. When I'm with my son, we are brutal with humour that I would never, ever talk about with anyone else. We are vicious and we die of laughter. But that's the cone of silence, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
between
a
us.
beautiful thing, isn't it? Because humor is a uniter.
Absolutely.
And when you have a high level of intimacy with a group of people,
100%.
you can share that humor.
Whereas if I shared that stuff outside the town, they go,
Yeah, you get looked at in a different
It's
light.
similar.
wouldn't you?
It's similar
Yeah.
in the way that you see some guys, and when they greeting each other in public, one guy will walk up to the other guy as if they're going to fight. They'll walk up to each other. And it creates a tension, and everyone's looking like, well, these guys look like they're going to fight. And then at the last minute, they'll hug each other and have a laugh. And it's that sort of threaten to fight each other.
Yes.
Is because they're so intimate with each other, they know that they would never fight each other.
Right.
And so they're playing with that intimacy. But the outsider's kind of like, oh, this is uncomfortable for us. But for them, it's just like, we would never fight each other. So we can play.
Have you ever had, let's just say, for instance, for me, this is my experience for me and my wife. Now, before I got married and before anything kicked off with us serious, my wife was warned about me. He's Egyptian. He's bad. Beware of him. Keep away from him. And every person that pointed the finger at me was being proven wrong, obviously. Have any of you had that? Like anyone, a friend of yours or a family member of yours, maybe been warned before anything like your friendship kicked off with them, or anyone ever been warned of you being your nationality or your background as being a bad person? Like, let's just say your mate that you brought last time that was here, 20 years ago before we became friends, was he ever warned of, hey, be careful of Tom, he's a bad cat?
At school, teachers used to warn his brother, who was a closest friend, you know, keep away from Tom. Because
Really?
They would say, keep away from Tom, he's going to lead you astray, because he was more academic than I was, and I was just, I just would speak my mind all the time.
So again, you were painted in
so the teacher couldn't control me,
Yeah.
and therefore I must be a very bad influence. I'm definitely an influencer because of what I do in my life. And I could have been that if I'd picked the wrong crowd.
But you've never let that wear you down, eh? You never let it just
No, not
be
at all.
away
Actually,
from
again,
you.
I just saw it as a compliment. It just
I've
depends on
taken
how-
it as a fuel.
Yeah, take it as a
I've taken
compliment.
it as a fuel. Anyone that does that behind my back or to a family member or to a friend, that's my fuel.
It's a challenge, isn't it? So when people are when you're confronted with someone stereotyping you, it's like a challenge where you can just prove them wrong.
Absolutely.
So
But I think you're taught that. You should. You're
it's-
taught that.
and it's an unfortunate thing. So you develop this muscle when you're a minority. You develop this muscle where, like, if I'm walking down the street and I've just got off my motorbike and I'm wearing bike gear and it's late at night, and I know that someone might look at me and think, he looks a bit menacing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I'll give them a big smile or say hello, or I'll cross the road so that they feel comfortable.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just about being mindful. Like if there's an elderly person or a female or someone walking down the street and you're walking down the street, you might just cross the road to just let them know, like, you're not a threat, and so that they feel comfortable, because they might feel vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know, just like if you're in a group of people and there's just one person, you know, because it's just a sign of being mindful and of people, their vulnerabilities.
And also being courageous. Like I said, coming from a Greek Macedonian family, my dad would, again, I learned, Dad didn't say, listen, son, learn how to deal with conflict. I watched him deal with conflict and take the piss. You just take the piss out of people. So if we were with the relatives that were very staunch Macedonian, Dad would deliberately just start talking about being Greek. And just make them feel uncomfortable. Own your shit. Don't put that shit on me. Or if he was with the Greeks, the Greek side of the family and someone staunch Macedonian, he'd just flip it around. So what I used to like about Dad, he just made people feel really uncomfortable when they try to put you in a mental box. It's not a physical box. It's a mental box.
Yeah.
So I believe humour is great. When I loathe being personal. I love being sarcastic about an idea, and then I give you an example. I do a lot of writing, I do a lot of blogging, and I do uninvited lessons in management. So I'll send a lesson to a whole pile of managers, and that they didn't ask for, right? They didn't ask for. I just said, listen, it's a concept. So I did this one where it was I was talking about old wineskins and new wine. You can't put new wine into old wineskins, and so it's got some spiritual connotations. But I was talking about a principle. If you're effervescent, you're full of life, you don't put it into something old and crackly, because you're wasting the beautiful wine. So one of the people that received this email emailed the owner of the company and emailed me back, but CC'd the owner of the company. Who are you calling a wineskin? An old wineskin.
Took it personal. Thought it was a direct comment.
But what I like is that if you speak something and you're sarcastic and you use humour, and if they own it, they've chosen to own it, not me, because I didn't aim it at her.
Yeah.
But if you see yourself as a crusty old goat, or if you see yourself as you've chosen to own that. And so I like using humour, but I never will make it personal. I like people to actually see themselves in the picture, and if they don't see themselves in the picture, it goes way over their head.
Yeah, but it's not nice when you get stereotyped, you know, and you walk into a situation
You put in a box
where you're uncomfortable, or like you know, like when I met my first girlfriend, I was nervous about meeting her parents. You know, it's just like, here's a black, you know, long-haired, dreadlocked, motorcycle riding musician boyfriend.
Every
like
mother's dream,
yeah,
every father's dream.
a tick in every box of who not to date, you know. But I mean, I got her off heroin.
Yeah.
So
well done.
So I was the golden child.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, so there's always, like, you know, like being stereotyped is like someone's taken a swing at you, but you can sidestep that swing. You know, you can, and then you can pull them forward and use the momentum against them with sarcasm.